Welcome, everybody, to the SkullKing Sports Micro Podcast, brought to you by Dr. Squatch Soap. Stop buying crap soap and go to Dr. Squatch today. Your skin will thank you. So we are starting up a micro podcast. Many of you guys remember us or have followed us from the beginning as the SkullKing Fantasy Football website and podcast, SkullKingFootball.com. We have made a transition, I guess you could say, to move on, not necessarily from fantasy football, but instead of just covering fantasy football, we are moving on to a bigger audience. So we are covering fantasy football, as well as we have added NFL team blog posts and blog writers, on top of also covering MLB, NHL, NASCAR, Formula One, UFC. We are about to start on our NBA and PGA coverage. And on top of that, we also want to add in fantasy coverage of all those sports as well. So we don't want to kind of move away from the fantasy sports coverage. We want to add, keep that part of kind of our roots and our beginning, but also go ahead and add on multiple other sports. So we hope that you guys enjoy what we've been doing with SkullKingSports.com. As this micro podcast gets going, what we are going to do is we are going to keep this as kind of a quick hits type of rundown of daily stories. So we're going to see what we can do about doing this at least every weekday, maybe throw in some weekends here and there. But we want to do our best to give you guys a rundown of the biggest sports stories of the day. And so why don't we go ahead and get started with episode number 1, officially starting here in Major League Baseball. After the Major League Baseball owners made a proposal to the MLBPA, their proposal contained an 82-game regional schedule with the universal DH, 30-man active rosters with a 20-man taxi squad instead of the normal 25-man roster, as well as a 14-team postseason played in home cities in October. Officially yesterday on May 31st, the players had produced a counterproposal of a 114-game schedule starting on June 30th, ending on October 31st, a player opt-out clause for those who do not want to play, a salary deferral plan in case the end of the season and postseason are canceled, and a 2-year expanded playoffs. We will continue to cover this and let you know the updates as we see more of this come in. But that's where we are standing right now with the MLB and the players. And so hopefully we can get some baseball and some other sports going here pretty soon. The one major sport in America that is going right now is NASCAR. Brad Keselowski yesterday won the Supermarket Heroes 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway. Thanks to a crash between Chase Elliott and Joey Logano going into the final couple laps. Chase Elliott ended up taking responsibility for the crash afterwards. He actually is quoted as saying, let me pull that up right here. He said Sunday, I was trying to get a run underneath him and got really loose inside. I didn't know if I had a tire going down or just got loose on entry. As soon as I turned off the wall, I had zero chance of making it. I'll certainly take the blame. I hate that we both wrecked, but we can't go back now. It was nice of him to actually take responsibility for it. We'll see how this kind of goes on from here. The next week, NASCAR is back in Atlanta for the Quick Trip 500 at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Moving on to the NHL, National Hockey League. They're finding a way to have the Stanley Cup. It looks like they're looking at a 24-team playoff with a start date still to be determined. They're looking at 2 hub cities, one for the Eastern Conference, one for the Western Conference. The cities so far that are being considered are Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Edmonton, Las Vegas, LA, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Pittsburgh, Toronto, and Vancouver. Moving on to the NBA, it looks like they are going to try to crown a champion this year. The official site has been set at ESPN's Wide World of Sports in Walt Disney World, Orlando. They're looking towards a 22-team playoff. A 22-team setting is how they're going to do this. So what they're leaning towards is a 22 team format. All teams within 6 games of the last playoff spot in each conference would play 8 regular season games. Then the standings at the end of those games would set up a play-in tournament for the 8th seed. After that, the playoffs would start. As far as the 8 teams that would not make it in, the 2021 NBA season is projected to start around December of 2020, which means those 8 teams will not be playing in Orlando and won't play any league games from March of 2020 to December of 2020, meaning nearly 9 months of no game action for those 8 teams. Moving on to our final major story of the day. Officially, it looks like that Formula One is getting permission from the Austrian and British governments to run races. It looks like that Austria will actually hold 2 races. They are going to go back-to-back, which, for those of you who don't normally follow Formula One, it's usually one site, one weekend for their races, but due to the COVID shutdown, we are actually looking at them running 2 weeks in a row in Austria. They're going to go, I believe, to Hungary the week after that, and then 2 weeks back-to-back races in at the Silverstone racetrack in Great Britain. So we will. It looks like we are going to have Formula One for all of you race fans who like things other than just NASCAR, who like the international racing as well. And to go along with that, it looks like the iconic Williams team, who was considered, I believe, the 3rd most successful team in NASCAR or in Formula One, looks to be selling at least part of, if not their full team. This is one of those teams that has been one of the iconic teams from about the 1980s through the mid 1990s. It is a shame that the COVID crisis has cost them a lot and has reverted them to one of the back end teams over the last couple of years. Hopefully, they will find a solution to keep the Williams team in Formula One. That is it for today's first official micro podcast. We hope you guys enjoy this, enjoy the quick hits that we give you on what's going on in the world of sports, and we look forward to getting back to you tomorrow.